What's going on, guys? Super Insane 18 here, and I am frantically testing for the upcoming North American World Championship qualifier. So one of the things that I tested last night at my locals is going to be Melffy Spright Adventure, and let me tell you guys that I discredited the Adventure engine. It vastly overperformed last night, which is why I am bringing you guys this deck profile, so let's go ahead and jump on in. And before we get into the profile, this is your reminder that the Fusion Summer Fun Field Centers are live for pre-order right now on my website, insanetcg.com. Link in the description down below. Make sure you guys pick yours up. It is a phenomenal looking field center if you like that archetype, and it is a limited run with only 100 total copies ever being produced, so make sure you guys pick them up before they're out. So before we actually get into the build, I do want to say that this is loosely based off of a list that I was sent in a group chat that I am in. I did take that list and then edit it a little bit to fit my personal playstyle and my opinions on the game, and there are some things that I would like to change, and I will go over those when we get in, so let's go ahead and jump on in. First and foremost, we are playing a relatively standard Spright lineup with 3 copies of Spright Blue, 3 copies of Spright Jet, and then our 1 carrot and our 1 red. Now this is probably one of the first things that I would change, but unfortunately the room in this deck is a little bit tight, so I don't know how I would make room for it. I think you need to play more Spright names, whether that's adding in a Pixies or a second carrot or second red, just because sometimes you don't have the extenders that you need, and having an additional name is definitely very helpful. Next we have our Nimble package. We have our Nimble Beavers, obviously 3 of those, and our 2 copies of Nimble Angler. Now, this is a little bit weird because it kind of conflicts with the Adventure engine in a sense. Lately, one of the best starters in the deck has been Nimble Beaver, being able to normal it, go into Angler, and then immediately get your plays going, but now you're not really able to do that if you intend on doing the Adventure stuff in the same turn, because if you weren't aware, the Rite of Aramis here says you cannot activate the effects of monsters on field other than special summon monsters that turn, so you can't use the normal summon effect of Beaver, and it does kind of put you in some weird situations occasionally, but it doesn't matter in the long run as long as you have those extenders that you need. So it's still very strong, and obviously you have to play it for the Sprint package. It's just a little bit of weird confliction there. We have our Melffys being the 1 caddy and the 1 penny. This is what you're typically going for on your turn 1 end board, because this allows you to set up a double Omni Negate or potentially a bounce. It just really depends on what you're up against. And then we have our 1 copy of Nightmare Corruptor Ibly. This card is just incredible. A lot of times you'll flat out win just because of giving them an Ibly and them not having an out for it. So yeah, really strong. We have our 3 copies of Kashtira Fenrir. I've said it in Spright profiles before, I love Fenrir in this deck because at absolute worst case scenario, it is an extender, putting an additional body on board for you to make something like Sprint. At the absolute best case scenario, it's just another interruption to put on your end board if you have enough extenders to continue playing without having to use it. Then we have our Adventure package. We have our 3 copies of our Water Enchantress and our 1 copy of Wandering Griffin Rider. Now, Wandering Griffin Rider is a little bit weird in this particular variant because you're usually not summoning it on your turn 1. What you find yourself doing a lot of times is searching it and keeping it in your hand, and that does a couple of things for you. One, it can possibly play around something like Dark Ruler. If your opponent Dark Rulers your board, after Dark Ruler resolves, you can summon the Griffin Rider and still have an Omni Negate, but it also allows you to freely activate Sprint whenever you want. Because it's a quick effect to special summon it, you can special summon it during your opponent's turn, and then that will activate Sprint because a monster was special summoned, allowing you to then detach off of one of your face-up XYZs to target a monster on the field and bounce it back to hand. And that can also be really cool under the Ibly lock, because a lot of times the only monster you have in attack position is going to be Sprint, and they have to suicide the Ibly into it by crashing it, and what you can actually do is summon this and use Sprint to bounce itself. Now all your monsters are in defense position, and there's really nothing that they can do, and it just works really well. And then we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom rounding out the monsters. Now let me tell you, Ash Blossom is so hilariously bad this format that on Friday I'm going to be making an entire dedicated video to why you should not be playing this card. Now, one of the things that you might say is, oh, but Ash can hit everything, and yes, that's true. Ash is probably the most versatile hand trap in the game, but versatility and impactfulness are very different things, and I just think that in the current format, unless you're against specifically branded, Ash Blossom does literally nothing. And again, check out Friday's video because that is going to be an entirely dedicated video as to my opinion on that. 100% I am cutting this card. There is nothing in this world that can convince me to play that coming into the NAWCQ. I just think that Ash is hilariously bad. Again, that's it for the monsters. Onto the spells, we have our 2 copies of Spright Starter, and then our 1 Smashers and 1 Gamma Burst. That is it for the Spright spells. Relatively self-explanatory. I mean, Starter is your starter. It's also an extender in certain scenarios. Smasher non-target banishes something, and Gamma Burst helps you get game. Being able to pump up all your 2s by 1400 is actually ridiculous. Then we have our Adventure Engine. We are only actually playing 2 copies of Rite of Aramis here. I think maybe I want to play 3, but again, we're already at a 42 card deck, so space is a little limited. But you don't really need this because you still have your 3 Enchantress to search it, and we are playing Foolish Burial as well, which I'll explain a little bit when we get there. So maybe I want to bump this to 3, but for now it's at 2, with the 1 Fateful Adventure as well as the 1 Draco back as well. Then onto the non-engine spells, we have our Foolish Burial. This is really cool because it is multifaceted in this deck. Not only are you able to use it to send something like Enchantress to the graveyard, which can then search you your right, but in a worst case scenario, you can also use it to send your Angler from your deck to your grave, and then Angler will summon 2 cards, so Foolish Burial can just put 2 bodies on board, and that's really, really cool. Then we have 3 copies of Enemy Controller. This card has been overperforming for me so hard. It is ridiculous the amount of things that you can do with Enemy Controller. It's really good going first as an additional interruption. It's really, really good going second as a board breaker. One of the favorite plays that I've done recently, I had Starter and Enemy Controller going into a Cached Hero board. He had 1 set Unknown with a Shangri and a 1 material Arise. In the draw phase, I went Starter and activated or summoned Blue. It made the Arise Heart mandatory chain 1 because the Starter was banished. Blue chainlink 2. I chainlink 3'd the Enemy Controller, tributing the Blue to take the Arise Heart. Again, this is all in draw phase. So I take the Arise Heart, I search my Jet off of the Blue, and Arise Heart attaches 1. Then in another chain, Arise Heart activates again because now the Enemy Controller and the Blue were banished as well. So I get to attach another card, putting him at 3 materials since he was at 1 when I took him. And then in draw phase still, I was able to detach 3 to banish my opponent's Shangri, which prevented them from summoning something like a Fenrir or Unicorn in their standby phase. And because I had another level 2 to just pop off, I was able to get the game there, and it's just a really incredible play. I love this card so much. I cannot tell you guys enough. Then we have our 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. This is just consistency. The deck is already hyper consistent, but sometimes you just need that little bit of extra push, especially because we are playing the Adventure Engine. So yeah, not really much to say about that. And then the final card is going to be the Double Cross. This is one of your better going first cards. It allows you to get a second Omni Negate by reborning something like your Herald of Arclight, or it lets you interrupt your opponent's field or graveyard, which is also very good. Against Sky Striker, because they were under Ibli, their only option is to normal summon Ray or Rose and go into Zeke, and if they summon Ray, they can't attempt the Ray effect to tribute because they have the Ibli, so anytime they normal summon, you can go ahead and just steal it or attach it to an XYZ, and then they're just really don't have an out. So yeah, really, really cool. That's the main deck at 42. Let's show you guys the extra. Now, the extra actually feels really, really tight, and there are some things that I would like to change, but I'm not 100% sure yet, so maybe you guys can give me your opinions and thoughts down below when I tell you what it is I want to change. So let's go ahead and show it to you guys. We have our 2 copies of Gigantic Spright. The one thing that I will say is if you are dead set on playing Ash, you have to play this at 3 because you have to respect Cached Hero Unicorn. They can just rip this out and then on your turn rip out the second. So if you are going to play hand traps like that, you have to play 3 of these. That's one of the reasons that I really don't like Ash. Then we have our 1 copy of Melffy of the Forest, just the Melffy engine, that's really all it is. We have our number 65 Djinn Buster and our Onibimaru Soul Sweeper. These are just really good utility cards. Depending on your hand, you can go ahead and make this on top of your end board, giving you another monster negate. This is a really good going second card, being able to clear problem cards, and honestly, I think that Flu is a really, really good deck this format, and this is one of your better outs to Flu. You can special summon this in defense and banish the Empin, and then it puts all of your special summon monsters live again in attack position, which is very important if you want to try and go for game. We have our Zeus package, which is going to consist of the Ninja Mosquito, the Downard, and then Double Zeus. The Double Zeus, again, is in respect of Kashtira Unicorn. Even though Mind Hacker is gone, they still are able to rip cards from your extra deck, so you do have to respect that at least to some degree. But yeah, that's mostly a Zeus package. For those of you that don't know, there is also an OTK line with Mosquito. If they have anything that's like 2700 attack or higher, and you can put Mosquito and 3 other monsters on board, you can just burn them for game, and that's really cool. Then we have our Nightmare Cerberus and our Nightmare Phoenix. Both of these are incredible utility, and honestly, I don't think you can cut either of them. They both are really strong in their own rights, and I find myself actually going into them both very, very often. We have our 1 copy of Sky Striker Ace Azalea. This is just a really cool way to out multiple cards, especially if you already have 3 spells in your grave at the time you activate it. Not just that, but since it is a Link 2, assuming that it remains on field because you have the spells and it doesn't pop itself, you can go ahead and overlay it into a Gigantic, so it just gets you a lot of utility. We have our 1 copy of Sprind, and this is what I want to change. I definitely want to play a second Sprind, but the extra deck felt so tight I just didn't know where to put it. There is one spot that I'm considering, but I don't know. We'll talk about it. I definitely want to run the second Sprind. And then for the Synchros, we have the 1 Arclight and the 1 Merry Melffys. This is the one that's kind of in contention about maybe being the second Sprind, but Merry Melffys does come up quite a bit, especially because we are now playing the Adventure Engine. If we weren't playing the Adventure Engine and we didn't have an Omni Negate in the Wandering Griffin Rider, we pretty much always wanted to make the Omni Negate off the Herald of Arclight, but having the Wandering Griffin Rider, sometimes it bounces a little bit more relevant, so it's just really hard to determine. I definitely want to play the second Sprind, but I'm not really sure where I would put that, so again, let me know your thoughts down below. And there you guys have it. That is going to be my Melffy Adventure Spright deck profile. Definitely something I am considering for the upcoming North American World Championship qualifier. If you really want to metagame me that hard, I am going to be playing Spright in some capacity at the event. I just feel like that is what I have the best possible chance with. I don't think that it's the best deck. I think Cash is the best deck, but I think that Spright is my best deck. I think Spright is the second best deck if you saw my top 5 meta video. If not, go ahead and check that out. But even being the second best deck, I believe that I have the ability to play it at that best deck level. So I don't know what variant yet. This was a test and it went really well. The adventure cards overperformed, so you guys know the deal. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, comment, share with your friends, maybe consider supporting me on Patreon. Don't forget to check out the channel sponsor Dueling Guard. Using my code in the description down below, you can get 5% off your entire order. And again, we do have the 100-piece limited run of the Fusion Summer Fun Metal Field Center, so go ahead, check that out. Make sure you guys pick one up before they're gone. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.